Hey everybody, Steve Joy here. As I said in my last video, I was going to do a video on inspiration. Now, these tips and tricks can work for anything. It doesn't have to be for role-playing games. These are just sort of things that I've used over the years and I've read about and so forth, and I've found that they work. What I'm going to be concentrating on here in this video is inspiration for themes, for figuring out a theme for a new game that you might want to play. Or that you're starting up, or perhaps you want to start in a new part of your world and you want to have a new theme for it. Perhaps it's a new continent or an island or, somewhere that the players have never run into before. But like I say, this will work for anything. You can modify it and use it to come up with new recipes. You could use it for figuring out figuring out what you want to write in a book, or creating a new song, whatever. Excuse me. So I'm doing a speed video here. This is the Doomwood, and I'm just going to narrate over it again. And you've probably, if you follow me on my socials, you've probably seen me post this already. I was trying to figure out what to put in the middle of it. I don't know. Maybe by now I've figured out something. I don't know. But anyway, I hope you enjoy watching me draw stuff instead of just watching my hands move around. I think it's more interesting. So, yeah, let's get on with it here. So, my first big tip, this is if you want to really be unique, if you want something that really stands out. The thing that I recommend is don't use the genre you want to play in as inspiration. Now, you have to apply the rules of the genre, of course, otherwise it's not in the genre. So, fantasy rules or hard science fiction, or if you want it to be a space opera, that kind of thing. High fantasy, low fantasy. Although all those things are going to apply. But what I'm suggesting is that you use things that don't come from fantasy. So, for example, you wouldn't use the D&D movie as inspiration, for example. But you might use Breaking Bad, the TV show, as inspiration. Or you might use, Independence Day as inspiration. Perhaps you're doing a fantasy world, and Independence Day is there are aliens have come and they're taking over the fantasy world. What would that look like? It would be fascinating. You might, in terms of Breaking Bad, maybe there's a bunch of wizards that are creating some kind of magical drug that's, it's affecting the community or the world or the kingdom, wherever you're at. So, you can use movies, you can use TV shows, you can use books that you've read, comic books, manga, anime, whatever you like. But if you want your theme to be really unique, that's what I recommend. I recommend looking at different genres. And the reason for that is that if you're looking at the same genre that you want to play, you're going to end up with a cookie cutter. You're going to end up with something that looks like everything else, because that's what you're using for inspiration. Whereas if you use things that don't fit into that, and then you sort of force them to fit in, then you can end up with something really unique. And if that's your goal, then that's what I recommend. The other thing I recommend is that you take your time doing this. There's no reason to rush trying to come up with inspiration. And so, inspiration is a process and it can take a while. So I recommend carrying a notebook with you and just keeping track, or maybe using your phone and keeping track on your phone of just different ideas and things that you like and things that you've heard that you might be able to incorporate into a world. And just keep a list of it. Don't think that you have to immediately try and figure out how you're going to fit it in. You can just put it on the list, and then you can figure that out later. I mean, you might not even use it, that's the thing, is you might get an idea and then decide later that you don't want to use it at all, and that's fine. That's part of the process. So another thing to consider when considering, looking at inspiration for a theme is what kind of challenges do you want your players to face, and what kind of a game do you want to run? And this will be really important. If you get all inspired to run to create a theme for a campaign that you don't really want to create adventures for, that could be a problem, and it could easily happen. So that's something to consider, is what kind of a game do you want to play, and what kind of challenges do you want the players to face? And what does that mean? It means, for example, you might just want the players to just have a mindless good time beating up bad guys and killing things. You might want a campaign that kind of touches on some more in-depth topics, some interesting topics from the actual real world. Now, you might run into trouble with that. Some players don't like that. In fact, I would say at least half of players don't like that. They want something that takes them away from the world, outside of the problems of the world. The thing is that I think people don't realize that it doesn't matter what kind of a game you play, it's addressing problems in the world. It doesn't matter how fanciful you get. I mean, you're fighting monsters. Well, there are not fantasy monsters, but there are real monsters in the world. There are real kings. There are real kingdoms. There are real problems in the world. Combat is a real thing, and that's an integral part of an RPG game. So, I think people just gloss over the fact that sometimes they're dealing with some really tough questions. But if you want to deal with questions, then you have to figure out how to add that to your theme. And the other thing is that I recommend being very deliberate when you're coming up with a theme. It doesn't have to be, a flibberty-gibbet kind of an experience where it just, flutters into your head and, it hits you. You can actually work on it. You can make lists. You can write it down on, say, a piece of paper on your phone, and be quite deliberate in working out exactly what you want your theme to be. Another good idea is to think about it before you fall asleep. Believe it or not, people do a great deal of their thinking while they're sleeping. So if you have any kind of a problem, not just this problem, but any kind of a problem, it's a good idea, if you can, to think about it a little bit before you fall asleep. You'll often find that you'll wake up with the answer. Apparently, we do a great deal of thinking while we sleep, and we work a lot of stuff out while we sleep. So that's something that I found is quite handy. The other thing you can do is look at not art books, at RPG games, and you might find inspiration from that. I mean, that's why there are, I don't know, many, many thousands of different RPG games out there, is because it looks to me like most of them are inspiring GMs and DMs for a certain kind of game. You take a game like Morkborg, for example, and that's definitely trying to inspire you for a certain experience. And I think they all are. Fate does that. I think they all inspire you for certain experiences. So you may find inspiration in those experiences and in the artwork, in the rules themselves. That's why they have art, after all, is to inspire. Another place to find inspiration is watching YouTubes and just seeing what other people are doing, watching other people play their games, that sort of thing. And then, take those parts, those things that you like from them, and add them to your list, and think back to the movies and TV shows that you've watched and put them on your list. So I'll give you an example of books. I just finished reading a book called We, which was written by a Russian author, and it was the book that inspired 1984 and also Huxley's Brave New World. So this was the originator of those two books. They inspired that book. Anyway, I've read the book, and it's absolutely an awesome book. I enjoyed it very much. And I was thinking the other day how interesting. I'm reading another book called Germinal, that is just fascinating. It's about the mines in France when before the French Revolution, and oh no, I think it was before. It's before. But anyway, it's talking about the lifestyle and so forth that the people had in the mines, and it's just absolutely a fantastic book. Anyway, I was thinking about sort of pushing those two together. What that would be, what that would be like a totalitarian state of underground in a dark and grimy industrial revolution kind of a world where life is cheap and you're expected to start working as soon as you turn 6 years old. I think it would be an interesting idea. It would be an interesting campaign, an interesting theme. Okay, so that's just an example. No, I'm not saying I'm going to do this. I'm just saying it was passing through my mind. The other thing that you need to do, I think, in my opinion, is consult your players just to see if they have any ideas or any things that they would like to play. They might say, oh, they want something like Game of Thrones or they want something like Lord of the Rings. And that's fine. I mean, that's just basically saying you want to play fantasy. But Lord of the Rings is a grand journey, whereas Game of Thrones is sort of intrigue and court. And so those are two different themes. Fantasy's not the theme. It's the intrigue, or it's the great journey, defeating a big bad, which is the interesting thing, which is the theme. So in that sense, if they say something like that, oh, I would like to play a Game of Thrones kind of game, then they're talking about intrigue. Now, it doesn't even have to be set in fantasy. Intrigue is intrigue, but your world and everything else could be quite a bit different than Game of Thrones, and you could still have intrigue in it. And that would be, so intrigue would be part of the theme, but you could have other themes on there and build on top of that. You can look at source books, commercially available source books, or online for different sources, ideas that people have come up with, and then modify them slightly. I came up with an idea some years ago. I was thinking of starting a campaign world. I wanted to do this. I found all of the Forgotten Realm books, and I went to buy them, and unfortunately somebody had scooped them up on me before I'd had the chance. But I wanted to buy them, and use them only as the lore for a world. I wanted to turn the Forgotten Realms into a zombie apocalypse. I think it's kind of funny when I think about it now. But I wanted to turn it into a zombie apocalypse, sort of a fantasy world zombie apocalypse. I thought that would be a really fun game to try out. So, in that way, I think that source books, if you want to create sort of a unique experience for your players, source books can be quite inspirational. For example, you might take the Forgotten Realms and mix it with Space Finder, or you might take Forgotten Realms and mix it with I don't know, some other kind of science fiction game that you like, or that sort of thing. And you'd get a very interesting result. I mean, what does the Forgotten Realms look like 2,000 years into the future? If you don't intend to publish your game or anything, then you can certainly do that. If you did intend to publish the game, then you'd have to change all the names and so forth, but it could still be very inspirational. It might make for an interesting story, or a novel, or a book. And then the other thing that I would recommend is sort of really thinking outside the box. Even though you may say want to play fantasy or science fiction, look around at other genres and see what you can lift from them. And see if there are things from those genres that you can take and incorporate and still keep the genre feeling the way it is. For example, Spelljammers is like that. It's basically science fiction with fantasy. So you've got spaceships, or not spaceships. You've got see that's a good example. You've got flying ships that fly through the different planes, and you can have ship to ship combat, and Basically it's fantasy in space, right? Anyway, so that's mixing two different genres. Yeah. So anyway, that's it. That's just a quick rundown of some tips and tricks that I have for inspiring myself when I need it. I hope you found this useful. I hope that you'll subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed this video. And I certainly enjoyed making it. And I hope you enjoyed watching me draw, or finish off drawing Doomwood. I still have to figure out what I'm going to put in the middle of it. Or maybe I won't put anything. Maybe I'll just use it as a border for something. I'm not sure. Anyway, thanks for watching, and take care. Bye.